Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's take up the daily quiz for today. The first question: which of the following statements are correct? The line of control or the LOC serves as the de facto border between India and Pakistan in the Jammu and Kashmir sector. The northernmost point of the LOC is known as point NJ9842. Under the Shimla Agreement of 1972, the two countries agreed to convert the ceasefire line into a line of control and observe it as a de facto border that should not be violated by armed action. All the three statements are correct, so option D is the right answer. See, following the 1947 war between India and Pakistan over the Kashmir dispute, India took up the matter to the United Nations for mediation. Following this, both the countries agreed to sign the Karachi Agreement in 1949, through which they established a ceasefire line in order to end the hostilities. Then later in 1971, after the liberation of Bangladesh war, the Shimla Agreement was signed in 1972, through which this ceasefire line in the J&K sector was formalized into the line of control or the LOC, which became the de facto border between the two countries in the Jammu and Kashmir sector. Then later in 2003, another ceasefire agreement was signed to provide for the maintenance of peace and stability along the LOC by restricting both the sides from opening fire against each other. Now this topic is in news because we have a related article in the Hindu. According to this article, India and Pakistan have agreed to strictly adhere to the 2003 ceasefire agreement, which restricts India and Pakistan from opening fire against each other along the LOC. However, over the last few years, Pakistan has deliberately violated the ceasefire agreement, especially to enable cross-border terrorism and to help in the infiltration of terrorists into Kashmir. So whenever Pakistan violates the ceasefire or enables terrorism against India, even India often resorts to firing against Pakistan, thereby breaching the terms of the ceasefire. But in a major breakthrough, the DGMOs of both the sides have committed again to uphold the ceasefire agreement strictly, and this could provide for the reduction of violence along the line of control. So in this context, there are a few important locations that you should be familiar with. See, this map clearly shows the areas of Kashmir that have been illegally occupied by Pakistan, which is referred to as POK or Pakistan Occupied Kashmir. It also shows the areas occupied by China, that is the Aksai Chin. However, this whole erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir is claimed by India as an integral part of its territory. And as far as the conflict between India and Pakistan is concerned, a de facto border has been set up that runs along this line, and it is known as the LOC or the line of control. The northernmost point of the LOC can be found over here, that is point NJ9842. Right next to it, you can find the strategic Siachen Glacier, which is dominated by the Indian Army. Then from point NJ9842 up till Indra Col or the Indra Ridge, we have the AGPL or the actual ground position line that marks the boundaries between India and Pakistan. In this map, you can even see the Shaksgam Valley over here, which Pakistan has illegally ceded to China by signing a boundary agreement in 1963. Now let's look at the second question. Under which law has the Government of India recently brought out the Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code to regulate content on digital media, social media, and OTT platforms or over-the-top platforms? The correct answer is option A, the Information Technology Act or the IT Act. And the information technology rules that have been notified under this Act for 2021 provides for the Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code that provides for the regulation of content on digital media, social media, and the OTT platforms. This question has been asked because there are two related articles in the Hindu. The government has brought out the Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code under the Information Technology Rules of 2021 in order to regulate the content on OTT platforms and as well as on social media and digital media platforms. As per these new guidelines, OTT platforms such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar, etc., they need to self-classify the content into 5 age-based categories. They should also enable parental locks for any content that is classified as U bar A 13 plus or above. And they should also put in place a age verification mechanism for content classified as adult. Apart from this, to deal with objectionable and controversial content, the OTT platforms will have to comply with a three-tier mechanism through which the affected users can raise their grievances. According to the new guidelines, if there is any objectionable content which is hurting the sentiments of a user, he should be able to approach the OTT platform itself at the first tier, and there should be a grievance redressal officer to look into these complaints. Based on the complaint and based on the guidelines, suitable action will have to be taken by the OTT platform itself. Next, the second tier is represented by a self-regulatory body formed by the collective of OTT platforms, which should be headed by a retired Supreme Court judge or a High Court judge or an eminent personality from the media or the industry. Complaints related to objectionable content that can disturb public order, hurt religious sentiments, affect national security, and even sexual content and content that seems to be promoting drugs and other abusive substances can be brought to the notice of this self-regulatory body. Then at the third tier, the government itself has assumed powers, and an interministerial committee headed by the Secretary to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting will assume emergency powers which can override the decisions of the OTT platform and as well as that of the self-regulatory body. Under these emergency powers, the government can decide to block public access to any sensitive objectionable content on these platforms. On similar lines, social media firms such as Facebook, WhatsApp, etc., they have been designated as intermediaries who carry the content, and they will have to mandatorily cooperate with the government and the law enforcement agencies. They will have to work with the government and the police agencies to trace the originator of any unlawful message as defined under the IT Act. And they are also obligated to take down any such content within a specified time period of 36 hours after receiving a suitable court order or on the basis of any government order received from authorized government agencies. Then these intermediaries should also set up a grievance redressal mechanism and assist the government agencies to track down any objectionable content and to identify the originator of unlawful messages. On similar lines, a set of guidelines and regulations have been placed on digital content as well, and all digital news platforms, they will have to follow the norms that have been laid out by the Press Council of India and the Cable TV Networks Regulation Act. Even they will have to set up a self-regulatory body to adhere to a code of ethics, and the INB ministry will also be forming a panel to ensure oversight over digital news content. The government has pushed these regulations in order to combat the menace of fake news, rumors, and propaganda which can threaten the country's national security and public order. However, serious concerns have also been raised with regard to these regulations by social media firms, by the OTT platforms, and by the civil society and the citizens. Because these wide-sweeping powers that the government is acquiring to itself can lead to the violation of right to privacy, which has been guaranteed as a fundamental right under Article 21 in the landmark judgment of the Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy case. This could also lead to the abuse of these powers, which could violate right to free speech and right to free press, and as well as restrict the open and accessible nature of the internet. Now let's look at the third question. Which of the following statements are correct? National Winter Games are held under the Khelo India and Fit India initiative. It is held in Leh and Gulmarg. Both the statements are correct. Option C is the right answer. This question has been asked because there is a related advertisement in today's The Hindu newspaper that has been issued by the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports and the Sports Authority of India. This advertisement refers to the inauguration of the second edition of Khelo India National Winter Games, which is held under the Khelo India and Fit India initiative. The first edition was held last year in 2020 and it is organized at Leh and Gulmarg. It includes sporting events such as ice skating, ski mountaineering, ice hockey, etc. And it is a part of the Khelo India initiative, which was launched in 2018 in order to promote a sporting culture in the country. Now let's look at the fourth question. Which of the following statements are correct? Krishnadevaraya was the emperor of the Vijayanagara Empire and was the founder of the Sangama dynasty. The rule of Krishnadeva was an age of prolific literature in many languages, including Kannada, Sanskrit, Telugu, and Tamil, and many poets from these languages enjoyed the patronage of the emperor. Portuguese travelers Domingo Paes and Fernão Nunes also visited the Vijayanagara Empire during his reign. Amongst the given statements, the first statement is incorrect, so option C is the right answer. See, Krishnadeva was not the founder of the Sangama dynasty. He is said to be one of the greatest rulers of the Vijayanagara Empire, but however, he was the third ruler of the Tuluva dynasty. The Vijayanagara Empire was established by the rulers of the Sangama dynasty, then they were followed by the Saluva dynasty, and then came the Tuluva dynasty. This question has been asked because we have a related article in the Hindu, according to which an inscription has been found in Karnataka related to the Vijayanagara era. And this inscription, which has been vetted by the Archaeological Survey of India, happens to be the first ever epigraphical reference to the exact date of death of Krishnadeva. This inscription clearly establishes that Krishnadeva passed away on the 17th of October 1529. Now let's take up a question from the 2018 prelims paper. In which of the following states is the Pakhui Wildlife Sanctuary located? The correct answer is option A, Arunachal Pradesh. See, the Pakhui Wildlife Sanctuary is also known as the Pake Wildlife Sanctuary, and it is also a tiger reserve. It is located at the foothills of the eastern Himalayas, and it lies adjacent to the Nameri National Park and Tiger Reserve of Assam. Now coming to the fact of the day, let's discuss about INCOIS, or the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services. See, INCOIS is headquartered in Hyderabad, and it is an autonomous body that was set up in 1999 under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. It is a unit of the Earth Systems Scientific Organization, which is seen as the executive wing of the Ministry of Earth Sciences. This scientific institution has been mandated to provide ocean-related information services and advisory services that can help the society, the industry, and the government, and as well as the scientific community. One of the key responsibilities of INCOIS is to act as the Indian Tsunami Early Warning Center by providing for real-time tsunami alerts. Following the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, INCOIS has developed the capability to track the occurrence of any tsunami event in the Indian Ocean in real time, and it can quickly disseminate the information to the local authorities and the local coastal population. This capability of INCOIS has led to its designation as the Regional Tsunami Service Provider by the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. As a result of this designation, INCOIS of India is responsible for providing real-time tsunami warnings to all the countries in the Indian Ocean rim. It also issues potential fishing zone advisories to help out the fishermen, and this helps in easily locating the areas with abundant fish population, thereby saving fuel and precious time for the fishermen. It also provides for ocean state forecasts by tracking key oceanic parameters such as waves, currents, sea surface temperature, etc. And these daily forecasts and alerts are issued to help out the fishermen, the shipping industry, the oil and natural gas industry, the Navy, the Coast Guard, etc. INCOIS has also deployed the ocean observing systems in the Indian Ocean in order to collect key scientific data related to the oceanic parameters and study the oceanic processes and the changes that they are going through, especially as a result of climate change and global warming. Then INCOIS has also been designated as one of the lead agencies to provide for early warning and forecasting at RIMES, which stands for Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning System for Africa and Asia, and it provides for real-time oceanic information and tsunami alerts to all the member countries. This topic was taken up for discussion because according to this article in the Hindu, INCOIS is going to partner with the National Remote Sensing Center of ISRO to take up aerial mapping of the Andaman Nicobar Islands in order to get a better picture of the oceanic floor. This study of the oceanic floor through aerial mapping is also referred to as bathymetric study. The NRSE has already carried out one such mapping known as topographic airborne laser terrain mapping for the entire coastline of India. INCOIS will further work with the NRSE to map out the oceanic floor around the Andaman Nicobar Islands, and this mapping will be very helpful in creating a 3D multi-hazard map which will help us in tracking and predicting underwater earthquakes and landslides, especially off the coast of Indonesia, which can trigger massive tsunamis that can strike the Indian coast. So this concludes our discussion for the day. Thanks for watching.